All right, it is about to be 1:04, so we're gonna get started. Well, thanks everyone for the time. I know back to the beginning of the year, and there's a lot of things we're trying to get off of our checklist and a lot of meetings happening. So, just wanted to hope you all had a great holiday break and got some well-deserved R&R, and excited for a fun but busy 2023. Obviously, really. I'm happy to be be here with you all to talk a little bit about more of the relationship with the PGA Tour Superstore and what we have planned for 2023. This is an opportunity to ask any questions about any of the various leadership opportunities that will be offered. So as I mentioned earlier, we're gonna go through that 2.5-page document that I had sent back in December, sort of right before the holiday break. And we're just going to go over those sections pretty much verbatim. And then we'll open it up to questions that you may have really regarding any of we'll call them 4 programming opportunities. I want to make sure that you have all the information that you need to execute locally so that you're supported and that you're also aware of the national opportunities for those teams that are going to participate in the PGA Tour Superstore programming. So thanks again for your time, and I am going to start off by sharing my screen, which will show that document that I'm referencing, and we'll go through that first. So hopefully you all can now see my screen with the 2.5-page document. Is that correct? Is everyone seeing that? Perfect. Okay, got it. So well, again, welcome. We have 4 programming opportunities in 23 with the PGA Tour Superstore on a national level, and we're just gonna take a deep dive to what those are. The first being the 5-week leadership series. So the leadership series is really it's a 5-week program, and it's really designed to, 1, build those relationships with local PGA Tour Superstore leadership. 2, take a deep dive for the teams into their leadership values and strengths. The third objective of the program and the series itself is really to start identifying potential careers based on those strengths and values that they're able to sort of explore. And then lastly, developing the goals on to attain that desired career path. So that is how we have structured this 5-week series. Again, I know many of the chapters on the call today have been at least in 1 or 2 years of programming with the 5-week leadership series, but we do have 5 new chapters that will be joining us. So really excited for that opportunity to continue to grow the First Tee PGA Tour Superstore family for sure. So the 5-week leadership series will be facilitated by the PGA Tour Superstore leadership that's local to your chapter market. In many cases, it's going to be the general manager at those stores, but there are some cases that the main facilitator is not the GM. It may be an assistant general manager, or it may be a staff member, sort of a senior staff member there locally that has the desire to facilitate this 5-week program. So for most cases, it will be the general manager, but it won't be. That's not necessarily true for every chapter market. So we will have 36 chapters participating in programming this year, and we'll have 38 different PGA Tour Superstore locations that will be involved with the 36 chapters. So 2 of the chapters will have multiple sites. That being said, we are still working with the PGA Tour Superstore headquarters team, and we're hopeful that by the end of the week, we will have a final list of which stores will be programming. Again, for many of you, it'll most likely be the same store that if you have programmed last year or even in 21, It'll be those same locations, but GMs change over time, and so we will have a list of that solidified hopefully by the end of the week. But we will have 38 Superstore markets that are going to be engaging in the 5-week leadership series. So I will be the point of contact for anything first tee related to do with the PGA Tour Superstore from this national programming side of things. Many of you are aware. My colleague Stacy Wagner, who also helps manage the relationship, she is an individual that will be reaching out on a monthly basis to you all to get an idea of the different programming opportunities that you all are engaging locally, because she shares that information back with Superstore leadership at their headquarters. So she'll be still your point person for that, but anything regarding the 5-week leadership series or the additional sort of national programming, I will be your point of contact for. The leadership series, we're going to limit that to 12 participants, and we'll go over the eligibility requirements here shortly. As I mentioned, the Superstore is really leading the facilitation. So the program will start the week of February 6th. It's 5 weeks, but we give you 6 weeks to sort of program so that there's a flex there. We understand that your chapter may be there may be a PGA Tour tournament or a big event that happens and you need sort of some flexibility. So we'll give you 6 weeks to complete the program, but it really is just a 5-week program. And that being said, there is some flexibility, additional flexibility with that programming schedule. That's just something that you're really going to have the conversation with whoever's going to be leading that from the Superstore. Like I said earlier, it's probably going to be one of the general managers, but and we'll dive a little bit deeper into that here shortly. Everything is supposed to be, it's created to be activity based, right? So we're hopeful that with the training that we provide, the Superstore GMs, which that's going to be coming up at the end of the month. Right now, it's scheduled for Wednesday, January 25th. So we really try to stress the importance of activity-based programming and activities within the curriculum, the 5-week curriculum that we've established. So in addition to the Superstore sort of being the main facilitator, we do ask that there is a dedicated staff person from first tee, whether it's a coach or again full-time staff or however, to be present throughout that 5-week program, right? Because you'll obviously have a relationship with the participants. So especially in week 1 and week 2, it's just easier to transition and sort of have a common face in the room with them. And then also classroom management, right? Like, we all know and expect our teens to sort of act a certain way. So ensuring that that's happening, that they're providing the proper respect to the facilitator and following up with some of the action items that they'll have sort of after the week to make sure that they're following the curriculum over the 5-week program. Each session is running between 90 and 120 minutes, about 1.5 hours to 2 hours, and we'll review that quickly here on the curriculum overview. But as far as requirements for chapters, we tried to be a little bit more intentional with the messaging around how many students we would love to see at the 5-week program. So again, sort of maximum of 12, and the criteria is going to be very similar to what our criteria is for all of our national opportunities. So teens ages 14 to 18. There is a caveat where if a team that participated in previous years, so obviously this would only be for chapters that have programmed more than a year, but if they've attended in 21 or 22, they are eligible to participate an additional time. But we're really trying to focus that 60% of the enrolled teams in the leadership series are first-time participants, right? We're really trying to make sure that we're reaching new teams in our efforts. That being said, there may be one or two that were younger, back in those original programming years, and maybe would benefit from this again. The only caveat is that it cannot be someone who had been selected to go to the Leadership Summit in Montana. So if they were selected for the Leadership Summit in Montana, then they would not be eligible to sort of take the 5-week program again. Then, as we talked about, sort of assigning a first tee staff member or coach to be the program liaison, and that they'll be responsible for communicating with the participants, keeping them accountable for attendance and the assignments. And then really that liaison should be the person that's having the conversations with the local Superstore general manager or leadership that will be facilitating to make sure that you lock in, a consistent schedule for programming. So picking a date and time every week that the teams will meet. As I mentioned earlier, the plan is that the kickoff week will be February 6th, and we conclude on March 15th. Now, March 15th is that week of March 15th. The majority of that programming session will be led by HQ, and we'll dive into the curriculum overview. But there will be a small component that is sort of just a wrap up portion for the leadership series. That locally you guys will have some time to address those sort of final action items. The participant eligibility criteria. So obviously, has to be a participant in this 5-week program that is in a Superstore market, so which you all are. They have to be classified as a high school freshman through senior as of February 6th. The teens have to attend all 5 sessions in order to apply for any of the additional opportunities that we're going to talk about further down in the document, which includes the apprenticeship program, which we call our Future Leaders program, the new event that I'll dive a little bit more into, which is our Leadership Academy in Atlanta, and then finally the Leadership Summit in Montana. And we are, again, there's circumstances that come up if a team, misses a week, but they're able to make that week up with the GM. There's opportunities there as well. Like, want to be flexible and knowing that things will come up. And then that they have to be entered in Salesforce for a minimum of a year, like an active participant, which is a little bit less than what our overall national opportunities sort of the requirements for that, but this is a little bit of a unique program, so we'll be a little bit more flexible with how long they've been an active participant. But we do ask minimum of 1 year that in order to participate in the 5-week leadership series. I'm going to keep going through the curriculum overview, high level. I won't dive too deep into it, and then I'll pause to see if anyone has questions on the leadership series itself, and then if not, then we'll dive into the other sort of additional opportunities. So the first 2 weeks, session 1 and 2, will both be a 2-hour session, and that was feedback from the teens directly saying, hey, we need a little bit more time on the front end to get to know our groups. So our week 1 highlight is called Outside the Ropes, and it's really going to talk about goal setting and reflecting on their 2, 4, and 6-year goals. They're going to explore different career opportunities that are in sport and in the golf industry. That doesn't include being a tour professional. And then what's unique about week 1, which we really like on our end, is that they have a chance to meet several PGA Tour Superstore employees in an activity that we set up across the store. And it's a great opportunity for them to meet, who knows, potentially meet a new mentor, but also get to talk with those employees to talk about where they ended up, how they got there. And it's a great sort of mentorship opportunity there for both the Superstore employees and the team. So really week 1 is focused on goal setting, exploring careers, and then meeting some of the additional staff in the Superstore. Week 2, very activity-based driven. We have 2 activities. It's called Understanding Our Values and then Understanding Our Strengths. So the values will essentially be a list of 32 value cards that they're going to receive. They're going to work their way down. There'll be different, the facilitator, the GM will have some different pieces to work their way down through to get to 5 values. And then when the teams have their 5 values, they're going to work in partners to discuss those 5 values and talk about how those values show up in their everyday lives. In addition to that, after week one of the take-home assignments is going to be the Clifton Strength Finders assessment, which asks like 125 questions. And then that summary gives you like, here are your top 5 strengths. So the GM in week 2 will ask the teams to pull out those assessments. They can look at it on their phone, they can write them down, and they're going to talk about what those strengths were. Were there anything that that resonated with them? Does it reflect them? Were they intrigued by any of those strengths? So definitely an activity-based program focused for week 2 in understanding values and strengths. And then at the end of session 2, they're going to introduce a take-home assignment. And that take-home assignment is for the teens to basically create a 5-minute presentation to deliver. And it's figuring out what's a potential career choice, how those values and strengths that they've identified in week 2 align with that career choice, and then how are they going to get there, right? So then teeing up what they did in week 1, which is really exploring the goals, is creating goals on how they'll get there. But the presentation can be a PowerPoint. Last year in Phoenix, we had a young lady do a song with her ukulele. So it really, we're hopeful that they can be creative with that, a painting, a vision board, a song, a speech. So there's a lot of flexibility there. And for that take-home assignment, that will be something that the GMs are going to introduce after week 2. So again, really heavy on the programming side, week 1 and week 2. Week 3, they actually won't meet at home, but this is an opportunity, I think, for the chapter liaison, to maybe still meet with the teams virtually to make sure that they're staying on track and they have an idea of what that 3 to 5 minute presentation will look like. So that, again, week 3 is not necessarily that they're meeting in person. And then the last sort of main session is where session 4 is when the teams will then present to their assignments to their peers. And then after each presentation, the Superstore GM and the liaison will sort of facilitate a quick good, better, how for each participant that is able to present their take-home assignment. So and then that 5th week, as I had mentioned earlier, on March 15th at 6:30. Now this may change, and if it does, you guys will all be well aware before, with plenty of lead time. But it will be a virtual town hall, which we highlight 2 or 3 first tee alumni that are in industries that are maybe in sport, and then also non-sport related careers as well. But it's really a unique opportunity for the teams to ask questions directly to our alumni. That always goes extremely well. We've had great success over the past 2 years. So that will last about an hour. And then the last 30 minutes of that session in week 5 will be where you all, whether it's in person or virtually, are able to sort of finalize, final thoughts and some of the action items and things, the takeaways, and wrap up, that 5-week session. So that is the 5-week program in a nutshell. And I try to have a balance of information, but not going too much further, because I know we have other items to address. So that being said, I want to take a pause. I know that there was a lot of information shared just now with you. Are there any questions? And feel free to either unmute yourself and ask, or type in the chat. Any questions specific to the 5-week leadership series that's going to be happening sort of in February.
Yeah, Brandon, I have a question. So, with the leadership series, that is mandatory for participants to potentially apply for either the Montana opportunity or the Atlanta opportunity. Is that correct?
That is correct. Now, there's a caveat in there, and I'll get to it shortly, but there is a caveat for that Atlanta event, which is new, regarding like participation in the 5-week leadership series this year, right? So they may have attended the 5-week leadership series, let's say in 2021 or 22, and they would still be eligible for the Atlanta opportunity. Okay, so that's a little bit different, and when I get to the Atlanta part, I'll address it specifically. But you are correct as far as any type of eligibility for Montana, and even when we talk about the First Tee Future Leaders program, which is really like the apprenticeship program, we want to make sure that it's the same teams that are going through that 5-week series.
Okay, perfect. And specific to Montana, I know the last 2 years it's been the GM who has gotten to know the young people over the course of the 5 weeks, and he or she selected who would apply from that particular market. Is that still going to be the case in 2023?
Yeah, I would say though, and hopefully that this was the case in previous years for chapters that have programmed, but it should be a balance, because I think that the GMs are the ones, yes, who are facilitating, but it really should be a balance of whoever that chapter liaison is at the chapter, who's with them for the 5 weeks. Like the GM, it should be a shared partnership in selecting those teams. Now, in previous years, we said that you can have a max of 3 teams identified for Montana. Because we have this new opportunity in Atlanta, what we're going to, the recommendation is going to be that after the 5 weeks of programming, the chapter and the GM need to have a conversation, and they're going to select 5 individuals. And those 5 individuals will apply. The Montana and Atlanta application will be combined. So essentially, for your purposes and planning, it makes things easier from a selection process for us to do that combined. And there's pros and cons to having a separate or a combined application. We figured we're going to go with combined. We'll see how it works out. And, if we have to adjust next year, we will. But ultimately, we'll have a total pool of, let's just say a couple hundred teams. The top 40 from a scoring perspective will be sort of going to the summit experience in Montana, and then the additional 48 after that will then go to Atlanta. That being said, and it's listed here, and we'll get to it again, but I'll just make a reference to it now, is that if you can't attend the event in the same year, and you can only attend the event once, right? So if you've attended Montana, you can't get selected for that again. You'll have an opportunity to do Atlanta, but again, teams will not have the opportunity to go in the same year. So, and we'll get to more of those questions too regarding like eligibility and application process a little bit further down in the on our call. So hopefully that answered your question.
Yeah, and let me just make a comment real quick. I know we have some new chapters on the call, but here in Houston, we've been fortunate enough the last 2 years to participate in this leadership series, as well as have participants attend the Montana opportunity in both the last 2 years, and they had an absolutely phenomenal time. They come back saying the experience has been life-changing, and me witnessing just the camaraderie during the leadership series from week 1 to week 5, it brings those participants a lot closer as well. So, I just think this is, overall a great opportunity, and very thankful for the PGA Tour Superstore and all that they do for our chapters. So thank you.
I appreciate the feedback. That's great. Any other questions, team, regarding the leadership series that we just outlined from from a programming standpoint, as I had mentioned, you know, we do have those set times, right? Like February 6th. If I know that there was several chapters asking like, hey, Brandon, you know, are we able to start a little bit earlier? Or, you know, there's spring break obviously is a big week, right? For many across the country during mid-March or early March. So I think you have to ultimately, you and the GM will have to figure out a schedule that's conducive for both of your needs. If that's starting a little bit earlier, I'm totally fine with that. I just want to make you all aware though that I won't have an opportunity myself and Dr. Ted France, who's very much involved with this program. We will not be meeting with the GMs until again, like that January 25th, 26th date. So it's going to be hard to really program any earlier before that. Like we need to give them the information, let them digest it. Now, if you're in year 2 or year 3 of this program and it's the same GM, it's probably going to be a lot easier to sort of facilitate that. You know, if it's a first year program or even second year, they may need additional time. So I just ask that, you know, I'm okay with it. Ultimately, this has to work for both groups. We just ask that, you know, keep that in mind that we won't be meeting with the GMs till sort of the end of January. And obviously, you know, we understand that, you know, COVID is still out there, and so we've made this program, you know, deliverable in a virtual or a combination, or all in person. I know certain chapters, depending on locations, have you know, sort of figured out what works best for them and their teams. I would say that our goal, and I think that we see the most impact anytime, I think we all know that in person is the best, but we want to make sure that it's a safe environment. So again, ultimately, that's going to be a conversation between that chapter liaison and the GM to figure out the meeting time, the location, whether it's in person, virtual, could it be a flex, you know, a little bit of both. I would say that, you know, those first 2 weeks of programming, if they can be done in person, that would, I think, be most beneficial for the teams and the GMs. But again, we're not, you know, we're also aware that, you know, different cities and states have, you know, sort of different health issues concerning COVID and numbers. And so just know that there is flexibility. There's always flexibility, but those conversations need to happen with the GMs as well. So. Okay, there'll be plenty of opportunity to continue to ask questions. I'm going to keep moving through sort of the 3 additional participant opportunities with PGA Tour Superstore, and then I'll pause for questions as well there. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen yet again. Okay, so again, to Brian's question earlier, these next 3, all of these opportunities, teams have to go through the 5-week leadership series in order to sort of have access to them. The first one is our First Tee Future Leaders program. So this is truly an apprenticeship program that's run at each Superstore location. So there'll be it'll vary on how many slots are available for teams. But one of the things that we've discussed is that this is such a beneficial opportunity for the teams that are participating in this program, whether it's this year, whether they participated in 21 or 22. As long as they participated in the 5-week leadership series, this would be available to them. So it's a paid 6-week apprenticeship program at the Superstore location. The only caveat is that participants have to be 16 years or older to participate. But again, they could have participated in the leadership series in 21, 22, or this year. This is going to provide them a great opportunity to work in conjunction with the store associates and the management team to really champion the Superstore's customer first philosophy. So it'll build upon the 5-week leadership series. And at the end of the day, it's going to provide them valuable training that will enhance their transferable skills in any career path that they decide to go. But it's a paid program. And then based on location, We have seen in Orange County, one of our teams that went to Montana last year, Gabriella, she took part in the apprenticeship program, and then they offered her like a full-time, part-time job. So again, that may not always be the case, depending on each store's availability, but it could be something that is a long-term part-time career for them. And who knows, down the road it could lead to internships at HQ or even full-time employment. So it's definitely, when we think of like impact, yes, Atlanta, the new event in Atlanta is going to be amazing. And there's no doubt the Montana experience is the most unique programming that we offer, at First Tee headquarters. But when you think of impact, the most impact is going to happen at that 5-week leadership series. And we think that this apprenticeship program could be just as beneficial to a team as Atlanta or Montana. So please, I encourage you to talk with the GMs about this opportunity. I think teams also may have, like, the GMs will be aware, and we will, it'll be in their week 1 curriculum, but we're really to promote this program. But I think teams, sometimes there's some hesitancy around like asking more questions. So if you help be that bridge from the team to the GM, if there's interest shown. But we really think that that apprenticeship program is really impactful. So that's the first sort of additional opportunity. The second opportunity is our new, it'll be called the First Tee Leadership Academy, presented by PGA Tour Superstore. This is a new event. We were hoping that we would have made this announcement much earlier, but we're excited to announce it as is. So that'll be June 19th through the 24th in Atlanta, Georgia. That event will be announced actually in the next Impact Today, so which is January 10th, which is Tuesday. So on the Impact Today, we were going to update our national participant opportunities calendar, so it includes that. And then we'll have a larger announcement of the continued partnership with PGA Tour Superstore. So it'll be up to 48 teams that are selected for this opportunity. So really, we're focusing, the curriculum is going to focus on leadership concepts around building a team, leading a team, supporting a team, and then assessing a successful team. This is going to be with 48 teams, it's going to be really about like team dynamics and exploring that and how it'll enhance their future performance in school, in their careers. The really unique thing about this is that they're going to be collaborating not only with their peers, which all of our events, they do that, but the adult mentors are going to be leaders from the Atlanta Falcons, the Atlanta United, the Mercedes-Benz Stadium team, and then the Arthur Blank Family Foundation. So each of those themes will be conducted by one of those teams. So building a team, the Atlanta Falcons are going to be facilitating that. Leading a team, the Atlanta United. Supporting a team will be the Mercedes-Benz Stadium, and then Arthur Blank Family Foundation will talk about assessing a team. So they're going to be getting a lot of different voices, a lot of potential mentors and connections for them. So a really unique academy experience, we think, in Atlanta. So we're really excited about that. And then we will continue with our 2-week programming in at West Creek Ranch in Montana. So 40 teams are selected for that experience, but it's over 2 weeks. So week 1, we have 20 teams. Week 2, we have 40 teams. Of the 40, 4 of those attendees will be selected into the First Tee College Scholarship Program. Excuse me. So not only does that mean for those 4 attendees that they'll receive financial support, but as part of the scholarship program, they're going to get mentoring, help with internship and job placement, and they will get a mentor for 4 years that they continue their education. So it's really a holistic program. It's not just a monetary piece, but they will receive from a financial aspect, they will receive a $20,000 scholarship over the course of 4 years. And then for that, the focus and those concepts that we're going to be talking about is building authentic relationships through developing awareness, growing through challenge via positive risk taking, developing self-identity through those dynamic outdoor and team building activities. So those are really our key focuses. What's really special about Montana is that it's very intimate with 20 teams, the support staff there. It is a deep dive in the individual, whereas Atlanta is going to be more sort of team focused, right? Like working and being a leader within a team environment. So it's two different programs, but all are, you know, with a curriculum focused on activity-based learning, and just some really unique opportunities for either or. So, and then the workshops in Montana are facilitated between PGA Tour Superstore headquarters, the staff at West Creek Ranch, and then also First Tee headquarters. And I had mentioned that Dr. Ted France, who's been a longtime consultant of ours at First Tee, he will be in attendance in both Montana and Atlanta with myself. So he's just incredible with our teams, and we're really excited to have him back for another year with this programming. So I'm going to move down into the considerations, and then I'll open it up for any questions. As I had mentioned earlier, both the Academy in Atlanta and the Summit in Montana will be a combined application. So after that 5 5-week program, the chapter liaison and the local Superstore GM or facilitator, whoever that may be, will nominate five candidates. As we had mentioned, teens cannot attend the Leadership Academy in Atlanta and the Summit in Montana in the same year. Teens that attended the Leadership Summit in Montana, either in 2021 or 2022, will be eligible to apply for the Leadership Academy in Atlanta. Now, they won't go through the 5-week program this year, but they will be eligible for Atlanta. That being said, if you do select someone from a previous year in Montana to apply for to apply for the Atlanta event, that will count against your 5 spots. So then you would really just be selecting 4 additional people. So just keep that in mind. You know, again, we're trying to, diversify the opportunities for the teens in your program, but ultimately, you know, it'll be a combined decision between the GM and the First Tee liaison. As I had mentioned earlier as well, each opportunity can only be attended once. And then regardless if a teen attends Atlanta or Montana, as long as they have participated in the 5-week leadership series, they are eligible for the Future Leaders program. So if you are a chapter that's been programming for 2 years, this will be your 3rd. Think back to those teens that were involved in year 1 and year 2. Maybe there is a 14 or 15-year-old that may be a really great candidate now that they're of age, right? They have to be 16 years or older. But we really think that that Future Leaders program could really take off, and we're hopeful that that's going to be a really impactful program for teens that may not get selected for Atlanta or Montana, and or even if they are selected, they're still eligible for that apprenticeship program. So these are all sort of the considerations to be thinking about as you're going through the 5-week leadership program. So a lot of information thrown at you. Hopefully you all have this isn't the first time you're seeing this document. So, reiteration is a good thing. But any questions that you have regarding the leadership series, the event in Atlanta, the event in Montana, or the apprenticeship program that I may be able to address for you all.
Yeah,
Brandon.
Brandon.
Hey, Brandon. Yeah. Go ahead, Brian. You're first.
I was just going to say, as it relates to the Montana opportunity and those 4 individuals who will be made part of the college scholarship program, do they have to be seniors in high school to be selected for that?
They don't. I will say, just from a scholarship distribution sort of standpoint, we don't it's hard for us to give to name a young person that's 15, 14 or 15 years old and sitting on that money for 3 years. So realistically, we are looking at the senior class, but if we feel that, this year there was 2 juniors that just, they deserved it. At the end of the day, they deserved that opportunity. And so I will say that those 4 are typically a junior or senior level participant
Gotcha.
in Montana. Yep.
Okay. Thank you.
Hey, Brandon,
And-
it's Jennifer in
Hey,
Austin.
Jennifer.
Brian took my first question, but then I got a second question.
Sure.
Montana, there's 2 weeks. One's boys week and one is girls week. Have you designated which is which? Because we need to ask our students ahead of time to make sure they're available for all of the additional opportunities. And obviously, if you're a little girl, you don't have to be available the week of the boys camp. So has that been designated yet?
So Jennifer, I'll address the first piece. The weeks are co-ed. So it's not,
okay.
Yeah, they are co-ed weeks. Essentially because of the housing scenario, like once we figure out, there will always be an even number of male to female. But one of the things that we are very intentional around too is, we try to select our applicants based on where our applicant pool looks like. So if we're 60-40 female to male, then hopefully that selection is pretty close to 60-40. So we just need to make sure that obviously the rooming scenario is very unique in Montana. Teens are staying in houses of 3 to 4. So we just need to make sure our numbers align for that. But it is in Montana for week 1 and week 2, they are both co-ed weeks. So what we try to encourage the teens to is that they really need to be able to attend either or, because
Okay,
we are very limited with housing. So and then once we make the selections, there's some flexibility, but there's not a whole lot. So we really need to make sure that the teens, if they're applying and they hope to get selected for Montana, they really have to be comfortable with attending either or.
Right. Okay, cool. Thank you.
Of course. Opening it up for anyone else, questions.
Hey, Brandon, it's Twin
Yeah.
with Houston.
Okay.
Same thing that goes with the Atlanta one. I'm assuming they would have to be available for that week as well. So technically, if they are applying for this, they need to be available for 3 of those weeks.
Right. That's a great question. Yes, because it is a combined application, they would need to be available for those 3 events. Because if they don't get selected for Montana, but then they end up being selected for the Leadership Academy. Now, that being said, if they can attend 2 of the 3 weeks, I still encourage them to apply, because if ultimately they'll still have an opportunity to like, if they get selected, they want to go to Montana, but they get selected for Atlanta. If that week isn't conducive for them, they will have an opportunity to decline that. The only issue is that it's possibly taking an opportunity away from someone else at your chapter that may be available for all 3 weeks. And, so it's again, there's pros and cons to doing like a combined application, but because of the time restraints that we have for like making announcements, selection, all that, we feel that the combined application is probably best. But to your point, if they're available for all 3 events, those weeks, that would be the ideal scenario.
Copy that. Thanks.
Yep, of course. Great question. Thank you. Any other questions? You guys are easy. I was expecting a lot more, but yeah, listen, we are very fortunate. It's really, I think, teams that are in your chapters and that have an opportunity with Superstore. Obviously, this is 4 additional opportunities that the rest of the chapter doesn't get a chance to sort of explore. So it really is special. As I had mentioned, the curriculum for both Atlanta and Montana is really solid. We are now putting a lot more effort into video capabilities and photography. And so the teams that are getting selected for these opportunities in Atlanta and in Montana, there's a lot of great collateral that can be shared with, from a local, whether it's a stewardship or just marketing of the teams going to these events. So there's definitely more coming out of the particular events that are with the Superstore. So something to be considered. But Atlanta, Montana are great. I think my key focus for the individuals on this call is that everyone is comfortable and feels good about the leadership series, because that's obviously the first item that we'll have to address. We really encourage you to get 12. We really want to see this number continue to grow of teams that are impacted by the 5-week leadership series. And then again, the Future Leaders program, the apprenticeship, we're really trying to encourage our chapters to promote that to the teams and get the teams talking with the GMs about potential opportunities, because that, again, if they don't go to Atlanta or Montana, we know they're going to get a great 5 weeks of programming locally with a leadership series, and that Future Leaders program could springboard them and be, beneficial for a different type of participant as well. So I'm trying to give all the teams opportunities to meet them where they're at.
Okay, kind of on a final comment question here, as it
Sure.
relates to the Future Leaders program, we just communicate, or the selected participant communicates directly with the GM about that opportunity?
They can, so they can definitely directly speak with the GM. The GMs will be all aware of the opportunity. But again, I think, Brian, obviously, but the certain teams may just be hesitant to ask or follow up. So I would encourage whoever the liaison is, they're going to learn about this opportunity in the beginning of the leadership series, but maybe as you're wrapping up, this is another item to talk about, whoever that liaison is. Hey, don't forget about, if there's any interest, you have to be 16 years old, but to be a part of the team through a paid apprenticeship program, this is great. And you can talk a little bit about what they'll get out of it. And hopefully that'll encourage them to speak up. Or if they come to you, then you can be that bridge to the GM as well.
And that's also available for a past participant who attended
Correct.
the leadership series and doesn't do the leadership series this year, but they may want to do the apprenticeship.
Right. As long as they've gone through the leadership series at the 5-week leadership series at any point, they don't have to be selected for anything else. They would be eligible for that Future Leaders program.
Okay, and one more scenario. So
Yep.
as it relates to a participant that was previously selected and attended the Montana opportunity, they're not eligible in 2023 to attend the leadership series. Is that correct? Okay. Potentially here in Houston, we're going to be at a different store with a new GM who has not previously met this participant who attended Montana. But you're saying it's up to us at the end, well, pretty much the liaison, to advocate for that one participant to be one of the 5, even though the GM has not met that young person.
Correct. And
now,
many people will be in that scenario because, again, GM's roles change. But to your point, you'd have to be that advocate for that person. So if that 15 is, there's a lot of conversations around, it could be, one of 3 or 4 people, but you have someone in mind that attended this and you're like, man, this is a really great candidate for Atlanta, then you'll have to advocate for that and then obviously make a decision.
Well, me personally, I would prefer it come from the pool of the 12 that are there meeting with
Right.
the GM. And I just bring it up because I can just already hear these questions coming from this kid's dad. So, All right, just want to make sure.
No, I'm with you. I get it. And yeah, I think, all the chapters will have different scenarios that come up, but you nailed everything as far as what they're eligible for, what they're not eligible for. And again, the leadership series, the 12 spots, we're hoping that the minimum is 60% of new faces.
blood.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay. Thanks.
Hey, Brandon, quick question.
Yeah.
Sorry, I already covered this, but
No.
for Elite Leadership Academy, is there going to be a golf requirement on the application? Because I know it's split with Montana. I don't know if Montana already has one or not.
So Montana, so Montana does not have a golf requirement, nor will Atlanta. Each event will have a small golf component. So in Montana, they play a 9-hole outing. So it really is just an outing. It's not a tournament. And same thing in Atlanta. They're going to be playing at we're looking to explore to play at John A. White, which is main programming facility for the chapter. So so that being said, there will be golf components, but it will not be, there's no minimum handicap that they have to meet or anything. Their golf resume is not involved in either one of those. So
Great, thanks.
yeah, of course, great question. Anything else? Got about 6 minutes left. If not, and I'll stay on till 2 o'clock. I just, very appreciative of the time. I know it was a lot of information. Thank you for I know many of you have probably already looked this over, but I think it's always nice to sort of get on the call, see some faces that I haven't seen in a while either is always a nice thing. But we're really excited. We know that we're excited about the program. One of the things that we will probably be reaching out, as time progresses with the leadership series, is where we sort of are at with the numbers, right? Like how many spots are filled and what percentages are new. And then if you do have teams that are participating in the apprenticeship program, we're going to start looking to create like a spreadsheet that you all could go into and like provide information of who those teams may look like, because from a tracking standpoint, we're hopeful to be able to share some of those numbers and demographics of what those teams look like to the Superstore. So that will be a little bit later down the line, but just wanted to make you all aware that there'll still be communication between you and I for the next several weeks regarding the leadership series and then sort of additional opportunities. One thing to mention, and again, this will be on the updated Impact Today that goes out on Tuesday, which will have the new calendar, which will now include, we did not, the version in December did not include the event in Atlanta because it still wasn't locked in. But I am giving you just an idea of the application release date. So since they are combined application, it will go out on March 1st. So it'll be available March 1st. It will close on April 19th. So that being said, I know March 1st is still in that programming window. I think it's going to be very important for us because we have this event in Atlanta this year, and we're doing a combined application, is that really by week 4, like after the week of or session 4, we'll call it session 4. After session 4, you really should have a good idea of who those teams are going to be to apply. And at that point, we will, on March 1st, we will have the application code on the internal website that you'll have to give to those teams in order to apply. So those conversations with the GMs that typically happen after the 5-week leadership series should be occurring earlier. You should maybe even after session 3, start coming down with your, start developing that list. And by the end of session 4, you can identify them because it's going to be a very tight window for the application for both events. So just keep that in mind. It'll be released out. It'll be available March 1st, and it closes on April 19th. So the earlier you can have those conversations of who those 5 teams are going to be, the better it will be for them because it'll provide them more time to start working on the application.
Hey, Brian, I had a quick question.
Sure.
Mike in Phoenix, how's it going?
Great.
The question was, I just spaced it regarding, well, I just lost the train of thought. Oh yeah, regarding the GM. So we had a GM who had been doing it a couple of years in the past. He's not there anymore. I was wondering if you guys had already identified the individuals who are going to be doing it. So if we wanted to reach out and coordinate.
Yes, so we will, our hope is that we will have the list of the participating stores, and we'll call it GM/facilitator, because as I mentioned, it may not be the GM. We'll have a list of those facilitators, so we will share that information with you as soon as it's confirmed on the Superstore side. That's all I'm waiting for right now. But my contact, Blake Ashley, who I'm sure you all know because he's at all of the check presentations and store openings, Blake will be confirming that list hopefully by the end of the week. And then I will share that with all of you on the distribution list as soon as I have that information, just so that you can know, like, if you know the person who's listed there, then great. If it's someone new, then, you know, you'll have to probably reach out a little bit earlier to get on the same board and have sort of that initial meeting. But and then I will also include, just as a reminder, when I do send that out, that our date to meet with the GMs in their training is January 26th. So we just want to be mindful of reaching out with time, but not too much ahead of time where, you know, they're not even really like taking it all in. So but we will share that information, Michael, when as soon as we get that confirmed from the Superstore.
All right, thank you very much.
You got it. I know it's 2 o'clock. I'm going to stay on for another 5 minutes. If anyone has any questions, I really do appreciate the time. This has been recorded, so I'm going to go ahead and I'll send this out for any of your, you know, other staff members that couldn't make the call. They'll be able to review this. And yeah, thank you so much. And we'll talk soon.
Thank you.
You got it.
Thanks, Brandon.
No problem. Happy to do it.
Thank you, Brandon.
No problem. You guys have a great rest of your week.
You too. Thank you.
Thanks.